Building a business can feel like a roller coaster.
Financial headaches, hiring drama, and marketing overwhelm are just a few things that make for a bumpy experience. But with the right people sitting next to you, you might actually enjoy the ride.
That's why we started Breaking Even Better, to demystify entrepreneurship so we can make the ups and downs a hell of a lot more fun.
Each week, we'll bring you the raw, real, and unfiltered insights from our own experiences and expertise. If you're ready for no BS, honest stories, and a lot of laughter, then buckle in and listen up.
And let's ride this roller coaster together.
Welcome to Breaking Even Better podcast, where we skip the sugarcoating and serve up the business lessons the hard way so you don't have to learn the hard way.
Today, we're talking about something that sounds sweet, but can quickly turn into a double shot of espresso with no cream. I love you, baby, but working with your spouse.
Or, in my case, working with your soon-to-be ex. Buckle up, y'all. This episode is part love story, part cautionary tale, and part, did that really just happen?
Oh my goodness. And today it isn't just us, but another one of our besties, one of our favorites, a Miss Nicole Milone. And she too works with her husband. And you guys worked together prior to
No.
See, I thought that he had worked for Money Counts.
He had worked for Money Counts with us before I did.
Oh, okay. And then you guys ended up working together, and you kind of
the plan
you
was
hired your
always
husband,
we would take over the business together.
right? And that was a plan that
That
went awry, and then
of-
ended up happening early.
circled it all back a couple
right.
of 10 years too early. Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah. So kind of like a curveball, like working with your spouse can be sometimes.
Keith has helped me with a lot in business, helping me with the operations, helping me with those decisions I have to do, outside of the business. But he does have his own career. But we also partner with the Lab Look, our e-commerce business. So I can't wait to get into it because it's one story. I remember had to check it myself because I'm like, you don't tell me what to do.
Well, then there is me. When you hire your then husband and you think, oh, we're a power couple, until you're not. I say 0 out of 10. Do not recommend.
See, I think maybe we had a slightly different experience because I didn't hire Brian, and Brian didn't hire me. He and I started the business together, so we kind of came in, and there was also a third party when we started the business. So we were, as a couple, we were 66% of the business, not 100% of the business. We had my brother-in-law, who, again, that's a whole other conversation, is like working with family, because he wasn't the only family member we worked with. All three of us had very different strengths, but Brian and I working together in particular, he's definitely more of an analytical mind. I'm a bit more of a creative mind. He's a bit more operational and strategic, and I think strategic is where we kind of overlap. But then I'm, like I said, a bit more of a creative, and I'm more gregarious. I was definitely more leaning towards sales and connection. And turns out I was actually better at hiring too. That was another thing, another area where, not that he was bad at it, it's just we tended to do better with the ones that I hired. It just kind of worked out that way. We all have our strengths, right?
Right.
Complicates things.
So I want to talk about structure a little bit because I was just thinking about it. So I own the healthcare staffing agency by myself. But then we have the scrub business, the e-commerce, and we partner. And I'm thinking about the structure. I think we work well together because we feel like we have super clear boundaries. However, I do feel like those lines get blurred sometimes. And I want to know what happens. When does the work talk stop?
The answer is
Please.
never, Nicole?
Yes, share with me, please. I feel like it's never.
Yeah, and that's where burnout can come from too, is if you don't ever take a moment to kind of pull back from the business. We talk about it at home too. I'd love to tell you that we have all the rules, and we have plenty of rules. We just don't follow them.
Right?
Got all kinds of rules that we don't follow. But I do think that there's an element of burnout. But we do try to honor. I'll say this: we did put the marriage first, and sometimes too the businesses detriment. So it's a very tricky balancing act that I would say that as business partners, because we would prioritize one another's feelings or the relationship and stuff like that, it actually, and I hate saying this out loud, it actually stunted our growth in some, because we didn't challenge one another as business partners often will challenge one another, because you challenge one another and then go home and share a bed. So it's tricky. I don't necessarily not recommend it, but it takes a very special kind of couple to make it work.
Absolutely. And I would say, you know, all joking aside, of course, I say I don't recommend. Just don't take it based on my personal experience. But I think it comes to play, and I love that Nicole at a prior episode shared that she went through emotional intelligence coaching, because I do think that plays a big role in the relationship that you have as either business partners or as the husband or wife being the employee of your company. When you don't necessarily have that high intelligence, it diminishes all the other aspects of the relationship. And that was my case, right? There was a struggle because I had originally started my business on my own. And as I started growing the business and he had acquired his MBA, I was like, oh, great. Now you can help me with the operations, because that has always been my weakness. I've always been very weak in operations. Like, I am a very strategic. I know accounting inside out. I can see the big picture. But for me, the day-to-day operation, it's a challenge. So at the time I thought, oh, this is like perfect. Like, I trust you. We're in this together. Awesome. Come work in the company and we'll make it happen. Until it didn't.
Right.
And it was basically because I had started the business by myself and I already had my own vision and mission that I had developed, to then bring somebody else who had their own vision. And there was a clash. What about you, Nicole?
I'm still figuring it out.
It's newer for you too, to work together.
New. Yeah, we're still figuring it out. Like, I feel like I couldn't do it without him.
But you also want to wring his neck.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, right. So I feel like that's really,
life. Like,
I would say, let's put a more pointed question on it. Like, what would you say is one of the best things and also one of the biggest challenges that you specifically have working with your spouse?
For me, I would say the best thing is that he is very strategic and can see, like, what would I'd say, like 10 moves down the road. I would consider myself strategic, but not to the implementation that he can see how things would roll out. And then I trust him to take it and run with it, like, right? And just fix it. Right? It's just, okay, cool. I see that. I believe in you. Like, I would just fix it. Like, because again, my role is to take care of the customers and to do all of that stuff, like the investment management, the financial planning, all of the things that bring me joy. So I would say that is, for me, I have that trust factor, similar to like where you were in your plan is like, well, I trust you, so let's do this together. I know he'll see a problem and just go solve it. Go ahead. I got you, boo. I'm going to be over here doing my thing. That's good. But then it's, how do you reconnect? Find the time to reconnect. So that's our deliberate, like, we have 3-hour meetings, three 1-hour meetings a week, right? To connect on very different things, because if we don't do that, then it's after hours. And I'm like, the last thing I want is sitting on the deck having a glass of wine, and the next thing we know, we're in a 4-hour discussion about work.
Has running your business left you feeling exhausted, unmotivated, and completely disconnected from your why? If you're nodding your head, you might be experiencing burnout. And if you are, we have an amazing resource for you. Burned: How Business Owners Can Overcome Burnout and Fuel Success is your guide to regaining control and reigniting your passion. Our friend and fellow business owner Julie B. wrote this book after her own epic burnout. Burn bright, not out, because your business and your well-being deserve it. Grab your copy of Burn today at the link in our show notes and fuel your success.
So if you're thinking about working with your spouse, first ask, are you doing it because they're the right fit, or are you doing it just because you trust him more than hiring a stranger? Those are the things that come to my mind that I would tell somebody. For me, starting the lab look with him, I think it was just because he was the right fit. But I didn't know it at the time. At the time, it was because he was my husband, right?
Yeah.
And it was the ideal. I wanted to expand during COVID, wanted to add a service, and wanted to be, because so many clinicians was calling like, where can I get some scrubs? Where can I get some scrubs? Because all the stores and stuff was closed.
Right.
So I'm like,
Opportunity.
it was an opportunity.
Right. Yes.
So we started that, and then when I got to see him thinking about things and doing things, it just enlightened me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Sure, what can you help me with in BPN? But but we sticking with the lab look, and he does really good. He's a visionary in that business, whereas I'm the operations.
Right.
He's the visionary. He sees the big picture. He sees what is going to make people happy, and designs our own scrub line. He did that on his own. I didn't. He knows how much polyester, whatever, all those different things. He knows all of that stuff.
Awesome.
I'm just like, make sure it's worth it.
Right.
That's where I'm at. So.
Right. So it's interesting, when Brian and I got started, he and I had worked together in a previous job. So well before we ever founded Go Beyond. And we had worked with his brother too. So all of us, it was very funny. If you've ever seen the movie The Hangover, like the three best friends like that, I was like, that's Billy in the back. And he's like, nah, it's not funny, Trisha. Like that at all. Why I gotta be that guy?
I'm concerned about the person in the trunk.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's that. But that's, listen, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, Carolina. That's for a different podcast. It's not this time, all right? No, but in all seriousness, when we founded the business, we all kind of knew what one another's strengths were. And we really wanted to do something where we worked for ourselves. So we had already kind of dipped our toe into working together. So we kind of knew how to be around one another. However, and we've touched on this countless times in the podcast and in life, is knowing how to do your skill versus having to run a business is a very different skill,
Yes.
let alone running it when that is the revenue for your household is this.
Yeah.
So it gets very tricky. And one of the things that I would say that was really great about working together was knowing one another and knowing our strengths. He is very, very, very bright, and situationally sensitive. He knows what's going on. He is very much an innovator. In fact, Go Beyond was his idea. He was the one that kind of said, listen, the SEO is changing things. I was working for CBS at the time. And he's like, listen, I want to try something. And he wrote a book that he launched on the internet, and he started selling. He's like, this is the future. This is what's happening.
Wait, we
Oh,
need
yeah.
to know about
Oh,
this
yeah.
book.
No,
I've never heard about this.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my
All right.
gosh.
So here, I'll tell you. I love how it's new for everybody. Okay. So I was working for CBS. Jakey was a baby, and Brian was home because we had just moved to Charlotte. And he wrote a book, and the book was How to Get a Bartending Job. Very simple book. It was an ebook. And again, keep in mind, this is 187 years ago when the internet was a boy. Okay, it was just little tiny. So it's like, I don't know, let's see if we can make money on the internet. I'm like, cool, the interwebs are cool. Little did I know how much it was going to change my life in such a meaningful way. So I was selling advertising. So that part of it, I already knew how to do. I knew how to speak to businesses. I knew how to speak into what they needed, pain points, all of that stuff. So he wrote this book, How to Become a Bartender, sold it online for like $35 and kept selling it. And it just kept selling. He's like, now I have this book. So he's like, maybe we should try other ways. So we started to, he decided that he's like, let's do some market research. I'm like, market research sounds fun. So let's figure out what markets are not being served. So there were bicycles. And there were also chimeneas, which was like those outdoor like chimney things that were really popular back in the day. So what was crazy, and this is before Amazon was Amazon, our little bike shop called thecomfortbikeshop.com, you can Google it, but it's not there anymore, actually outranked Toys R Us, which was a big deal. This is about 15 years ago. Outranked Amazon, outranked Walmart for bikes. So we're like, this is interesting. And then the market crashes come 2009. Everybody's freaking out. Everybody loses their job. We're in Charlotte, so all the bankers lost their job, and they're like, I'm going to hang up my shingle. So we have all these little baby businesses. I'm not with CBS anymore. I get laid off. I'm nursing Connor, and I'm like, hey, let's fulfill these, purchase orders, because we've got these tiny little websites that are they're all e-com, little tiny websites. And then all of our neighbors started saying, I'm going to hang up my own shingle. I'm going to do my own thing. And they're like, can you help us out? I was like, sure. So we did it like 3 or 4 times. And then the 5th time, I'm like, that's going to be $400. That's going to be that's going to be $1,200. I had no idea. And that's how Go Beyond was born. So it'd be like, yeah. So I'm surprised you guys didn't know that. But yeah, so Brian and I have worked together, and I really do enjoy working with him. However, and getting back to this, there are challenges too, where if I sense that he's getting elevated or frustrated, or he wants to go in a direction I don't want to go in, I have to catch myself because I'll get emotional. Or if he feels like somebody is being disrespectful to me, then all of a sudden there's a protective thing. So the relationship kind of jumps in front of the business sometimes. That's our biggest challenge. We're much better at it now, though. We've been at it for a minute. Kind of like parenting. You get a little better at it.
A little better every day.
I've been doing Go Beyond is one of our babies. So yeah, that's the balancing act that we kind of had to deal with. So yeah, it's interesting. It can be awesome, and it can also be exceptionally challenging to work with your spouse.
I would say that for me during that period of time, it was having the hard conversations, which we talked about in a prior episode, of having to let the spouse know that's not the way we do business.
Right.
And I'm not okay with you handling that situation in that way. Mm-hmm. And then having the discussion, to call it something,
Feedback.
Right.
of you don't need to be bossing me around. I know what I'm doing, X, Y, Z. And I'm like, but boo, the LLC is in my name.
Right.
So it just became harder and harder to overcome my position as a leader and the visionary of my business with a spouse who now was in conflict of sort of interest with what my vision was. So I think just for anybody who's listening and considering, having a business with your spouse, is really have clarity around the vision and the mission of your organization and who's going to be doing what, so that everybody stays in their lane. Our lanes were crossing, and that became eventually a non-negotiable that we could not overcome.
Yeah.
I remember one time I walked in on Keith. He was in the office and he was on a client call. And he was saying something I 100% didn't agree with. And I made it clear, and I feel like the client heard. I cannot remember exactly what it was, but I remember going back and forth with him, and he like, I'm on a call. And I'm like, but no. So I storm out and go and sit in my office and brew. I'm like upset because now I feel like you making decisions without me when he knows this stuff, and this is what he's the visionary. I had to really quickly find my space and get back into my place, which was operations, just making sure everything ran smoothly. And I think that's one of the things when you're working with your spouse, like you said, you have to have clarity, clear boundaries, all that stuff in regards to work. And then at home, we don't hardly talk about it unless it's something with ordering some more stuff or doing something like that. But we definitely don't linger on it at home, which is the good part.
I think what's interesting, and I'd love to talk to Nicole about this too, is that sometimes we as spouses, okay, this is a great example. Like, we're all girlfriends, right? So when we're hanging out, we talk about business, but we talk about our personal lives too. And we talk about struggles that we're dealing, stage of life stuff. Like, we talk about that kind of stuff. But when you're with your partner's also your spouse, how you show up for them as a spouse is not always the same as you show up as a partner. In fact, how I show up for my team is not how I show up for my kids. It's different. And the role I play is different. And I wanted to ask Nicole about this because that's a huge adjustment that you guys just went through. So I'm just curious about, do you see where there might be friction there, where Doug has you in one category as your spouse and then one category as a partner, and then you have the opposite where you have him in a spouse category versus a partner? I'm just curious what your experience with that has been like.
Yeah, I would say Doug is much more emotionally intelligent than I am. And so he has the lanes. He gets it. It's me that blurs a lot of times. And I would say, yes, we show up differently for different things. But it's... For me, it's figuring out how do I show up, because I truly show up authentically myself no matter what.
Right, right.
It doesn't matter what role I'm playing. I just am me, because I don't know how to manage those different personas, I guess is the right way to say it. So I would say I'm still learning that. And that's that learning process that we're going through right now. And for us, I think it's just it's time. We don't have all the time in the world. We're starting to figure that out now. But before it was like, as soon as business was done, okay, now we actually have time to talk.
Right.
So we figure out ways to add more time to the schedule, like as far as eliminating the time that I spend doing the business. So that has definitely helped a lot. But sometimes it's where all of our creative ideas come from.
Sure.
Because I cannot be in the thick of it, and then he takes the vision and runs with it with his strategy. So it's kind of cool at the same time, but it's a 24/7,
Right.
job for us right now. And so that's really where I think we need to figure out is that downtime. So I think we find that on vacation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, vacation.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How long have you been married?
It was 20 years in September.
Oh, beautiful. How about you?
We're gonna skip the question for Nicole.
I've been 21 years. Sorry, 21 years.
Okay, so we are at 13 this year.
Lucky
How long
13.
were you married?
I was married for 18 years, and now I've been
goodness.
happily divorced for 5.
I like that. Happily divorced. Wow. See, so we're the babies in the marriage family here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still pretty seasoned, though. It's not like it's 13 months.
Right,
It's
right.
13 years.
Yeah,
years
I
is
mean it's a
legit.
lot. It's a lot. It's still a long time, I honestly don't necessarily think the time has anything to do with it.
Right.
But it's maturity, is how we evolved as individuals, because who I was at 25 is
exactly.
not who I am at 58.
Not by a long shot.
Not by a long shot. And there's a lot of things that today I can let go that I couldn't 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Especially when I was in the midst of growing my business and kind of finding my own voice as an entrepreneur. And so to have kind of like noise, sort of quiet that when I'm trying to have this, identity and the branding and, how do I show up? Because it's not necessarily that you don't show up authentically, Nicole. I think it's more like you realize that when you walk into this particular room, there is an energy and a need for you to say certain things
right.
that you don't need to say in another space. You're still your same person, but there's just a difference in the messaging and in the way that you communicate with certain people, because your team is one thing, your clients is another, and then your vendors and business community is another. So really, I just found myself that during that period of time when I was a baby in business,
Right.
it just became a real challenge to have somebody in my life that was not necessarily in alignment. He was great at his job,
Right.
but as like the sort of the push in the direction of the company was just not an alignment.
It's interesting, too, because I think that working with my partner, two things that I've noticed that have been really interesting is, again, like you were saying, Caroline, like how we show up for somebody is different. Like if you've ever told a 4-year-old you're going to Disney World, you can't tell them unless you're going that day, right? Because they will not stop talking about it. But you can, however, say to that to your husband, oh, we're going to go and we'll plan it 4 years in advance, because they can handle that information. How you delineate information to a client or to the team is not necessarily how you're going to show up for your partner, right? So like the version of you that shows up is not inauthentic. It's just how much information, how much of me do you get, and how much of this am I going to disclose, right? So we had an interesting experience where there was we were working with an energy company, and I did not appreciate the way one of their teammates were dealing with he was abusive, not the CEO, but one of the guys was our point of contact was abusive to my team. So I was going to fire them, and Brian was categorically against firing them. And we were so misaligned on how best to handle that. Now, of course, I'm sharing this story because I win in this story, so that's super fun for me. I did not win in every story, but it's my podcast, so I get to win on this story. So I remember I'm emailing him, and we're going to fire them. And Brian went for a walk. Like, he was so angry and so scared because it was a big account, didn't want to lose the money because, of course, it's tied to our income and it's our mutual income. So it's a whole big deal. So we fired him. The guy comes back. He's categorically sorry, blah, blah, blah. The other guy's going to get fired, whatever. I win. So we keep the client. The guy gets fired. I win. I'm the best, right? But there's other times where I've had to lean into his judgment. And when we're categorically misaligned, it can be so challenging, and that absolutely permeates to home. I'd love to tell you that we turn it off and be like, so let's have tacos.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You can suck it with your damn tacos. Right? I'm out. Like I said, I'm never having a taco again.
So how about sex tonight?
Absolutely not. Immediately no. That's it. Never again. So I don't last that long. Until I get over it, which is usually pretty fast. So it's very, very different. But have you guys ever experienced that where you were so categorically, like on a specific situation, either with whether or not you're going to let somebody go on the team, or you were going to fire a client or take on a client or make some kind of business decision where you just completely were misaligned?
Oh yeah, that's the one I spoke of earlier.
Yeah.
When I stormed out and sat in my office
and you were brooding
and was just mad. I was mad, and I couldn't even do the business that I needed to do because I was so angry.
Right.
But then, like I said, I had to realize that if he's the visionary, I need to let him do that. And then I need to deal with the operations and make sure the software, everything is running the way it's supposed to run. So it's just getting in my place, because I also, like we said earlier in a different podcast, that I have to let them or hire people to do the things that I'm not great at.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just was a control freak at that moment. And I needed to let him do what he was great at, and I needed to fall back. So it took a minute, and he came in there. He never lets me stay mad. He comes and make me laugh when I'm so mad.
That would
He knows you.
That would be your husband, yes.
He knows you. He makes me laugh.
So I couldn't stay mad that long, but the time I was in my office while he was finishing his call, I was angry.
Oh, pissed off.
Trying to figure out what I was going to say when he did come in there, but he didn't allow me.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say for me, there was a particular situation with a team member, and the way that he was handling versus the way I wanted it to be handled was very different. And I let him do it because I didn't want the team to know that we were not in agreement. So I had to put on a face, and it took, because you guys know, I don't have
everything you
I
had.
don't have a fucking
No, you don't.
poker face.
No, I would love to play poker with you. I would clean you out, Carolina, because you do not have a poker face.
I'm like, it took every ounce of energy from me to pull back, let the situation play out. And then I went for a walk and started considering the events.
Right.
To say, this is really not going to work for me long term.
Right.
And it was a really difficult place to be in while I was married and, father of my daughters.
Right.
It was a really difficult place to be in, to think, oh my God, what now?
Right.
Right.
How do I now let him go, fire him?
Right.
We still live in the same house.
Right.
Yeah.
We like what now? So it just really became very difficult, guys. It was It was a real struggle because the decision in my mind was already made
Right,
for
it was
me.
clear.
Right.
Like it was like it had to happen.
Right.
So of course, things evolved from there.
Right.
Yeah.
As to where we are no longer married.
Right. Right.
But it was that moment that I was like, oh crap. Now what?
I do have one other question to poll the group, and I'll start with Nicole too. It's just, have you guys ever been in a situation where there was a personal matter that then impacted work? Like it was the opposite. In other words, you didn't bring home work, you brought home to work, if that makes sense. Like in other words, we had a real challenge with my oldest, that I will not get into on this particular podcast. But we were categorically misaligned on how to handle that, and then have to talk about invoices. And did we close this person? And I was like, let's run payroll. Why don't you go suck it? So it was really, really, really hard. So I just want so mad. And he was mad at me. It wasn't just me mad. It was him mad at me too.
It was a mutual.
Yeah, mutually pissed off at the world. And we can't flip out on the kid. You know what I mean? That's not really going to help much. So I'm just curious if you guys have ever brought home to work. Has that happened to any of you?
Well, just going through, I don't know that home to work, but for me, it's the whole losing Debbie.
Right.
Right. And the transition of what do I want this business to look like, but I need you to be in this business with me. Like I needed him to guide me through how to run a business and help me through that. And that just brought tension into our personal lives.
Sure.
And then personal, I mean, it was all so intertwined because it was 24/7, like nonstop for us.
Right.
There was no separation. That's why vacation was our only separate, because we could just cut off life in general and be like, okay, we're going to be on this cruise ship. We are just going to, you can go your way, I can go my way. The kids can do their own thing, and then we can come back and have dinner together. And it was like, for the first few days, that was the decompression that we could have. We've so much learned better on the separation and how to deal with the consequences of working together and living together and all the things. But like downsizing our book of business, like I'm emotionally attached to these people, and he's the P&L guy, right? He's like, no, we're not making any money. Like you're wasting your time. Yes, exactly. And I'm like, you can go to hell right now because you're asking me to get rid of my friends, like, or my family, just all the things. And it was so emotionally driven for me. And then when you step back and you see, it's like, wait, that's our money that's going out the door though too, right? Because I'm paying to have them as clients. I'm paying them. And they would never want that either. Like no one understands how the business actually operates. So when we were able to kind of satisfy that and understand it, and I could get through that emotional piece, it was like, oh, gosh darn, you are right.
Right.
And it was like light bulbs, but that was a roller coaster of emotion for all of us.
I don't remember bringing home to business. Like I said, he don't let me stay upset long. He doesn't stay upset long at all. So I don't remember that. It's always been business to home, and then he nipped that in the bud really quickly.
I adore him. I really do. I love how he's just like light on his feet kind of a guy.
He is.
It's fun.
But to wrap this up or bring it to a close a little bit, if you are even thinking about working with your spouse, then do it or try. If you're already working with your spouse and you feel like this isn't working, it's okay to say that it's not working. Or you can say that let's try, whatever the case may be. It doesn't mean that you failed at anything.
That's right.
The only thing it means is that one of you guys are evolving. So it's okay to try, and then it's okay to acknowledge that it's not working. Just you have to make your own decisions on that. You've heard our stories, so you have your own to tell.
Yeah. I would say that the key for Brian and I has been communication. And we're not always good at it, but we fight the good fight to overcome it and recognize that the person that you're looking at is not only a partner you chose for business, but a partner you chose for life. So there is a trust factor there. And also having to have the hard conversation. This comes back to communication as well. Like, this is not a job you should be doing. This is a job that I shouldn't be doing. This is a job we should outsource. Or this is a job, let me take this off your plate. But Brian and I just had that conversation. And then I kind of was like, are you sure you don't want me to take it back? Because you look overwhelmed, you know? So there's an element of that too. And communication sounds like so trite and generalized, but specific, measured, and honest. I mean, raw, real, and unfiltered, right? So it's really true. Even when it's ugly, it's an investment in the future to truly communicate. And not try to preserve one. You don't have to be cold, but you don't just try to preserve one another's feelings. Like, say, listen, we really need to punch through this.
The sugarcoating.
The sugarcoating it's ultimately sugarcoating's lovely. It's truly bullshit if we're really at it. So
Right.
Yeah,
But I would say, I think even when things don't work out, the way I see that part of my journey is that it taught me a lot of lessons about partnership. And partnership is not just in marriage, is in business.
That's right.
So today, when I am working with clients that are in partnership, I am so much better prepared to guide them and offer them some opportunities to grow themselves as partners because of my experience with my ex. So we don't need to necessarily look at it as a negative or something that, you should never do.
Right.
Look, everybody has to try their own lane. Like what works for you doesn't work for me, doesn't work for the other person, but you have to give it a try. And if it's in your heart and you guys think that this is in the best interest of the business or the family, go for it. Just have clarity. And make sure that you do separate what feels very intimate and personal in your home from what happens in the business.
That's right.
Very much. Boundaries. That's what I learned from you guys. Boundaries.
Yes. So, thank you guys for tuning in. If you like this episode and you want to share it with a couple that is either thinking about going into business together or already in business together and maybe struggling, listen to this episode, share this episode. We may be saving them from a few therapy appointments.
Or even a divorce.
That's
Or
right.
a divorce.
Right. Thank you for listening. And remember, we're here to help you not only break even, but break even better. Thank you so much for listening to the Breaking Even Better podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. To connect with our podcast or any of us individually, make sure you head to the show notes for all the links you need. See you in the next episode.